I was on patrol driving down a dark, deserted road. It was late at night, and the only sound was the hum of my car engine. I was starting to get bored when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head, and I saw a large, hairy creature standing in the middle of the road. It was about the size of a man, and it had long black hair. Its eyes were glowing red in the darkness. I slammed on the brakes, and the car skidded to a stop. I sat there for a moment, just staring at the creature. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The creature stared back at me for a moment, then it turned and ran away. I watched it go, and I knew that I would never forget what I had seen. I reported what I had seen to my captain, but he didn't believe me. He told me that I was just imagining things. But I knew what I had seen. I knew that it was real. I started to do some research, and I found out that there were many reports of strange creatures being seen in the Pacific Northwest. Some people said that they were Bigfoots. Others said that they were demons. I didn't know what to believe, but I knew that I wasn't the only one who had seen these creatures. A few weeks later, I was on patrol again. I was driving down the same road, and I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head, and I saw the creature again. This time, I wasn't so scared. I got out of my car and walked towards the creature. It stopped and stared at me. I stared back at it. After a few moments, the creature spoke. "Hello?" I was so surprised that I almost fell over. "Hello, my name is John," I said. "It's nice to meet you, John." "It's nice to meet you too," I said. We talked for a while. Bigfoot told me that he was a member of a tribe of Bigfoots that lived in the forest. He said that they were peaceful creatures and that they only wanted to be left alone. I believed Bigfoot. I could tell that he was telling the truth. I told Bigfoot that I would never tell anyone about him or his tribe. I promised that I would protect them. Bigfoot thanked me. He said that I was a good man. I left Bigfoot and returned to my car. I drove away, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I had just experienced. I knew that I had met something special. I knew that I had met Bigfoot. I never saw Bigfoot again, but I never forgot him. I still think about him sometimes. This time, Bigfoot was not alone. He was with a group of other Bigfoots. They were all standing in the middle of the road, and they were all staring at me. I stopped my car and got out. I walked towards the Bigfoots. They stopped staring at me and looked at each other. After a few moments, one of the Bigfoots spoke. "We need your help." I was surprised. "What do you need help with?" "There are hunters in the forest. They are trying to kill us." "I'll help you." I and the Bigfoots went into the forest. They found the hunters' camp, and they attacked them. The hunters were outnumbered and outmatched, and they were quickly defeated. The Bigfoots were grateful to me for helping them. They told me that I was a good man, and that I was welcome in their forest any time. I left the forest, but I never forgot the Bigfoots. I knew that they were a peaceful people, and I knew that they deserved to be protected. I continued to patrol the forest, and he kept an eye out for the hunters. I never saw them again, but he knew that they were out there. I knew that he had to be prepared to protect the Bigfoots if they ever came back. I retired from the police force a few years later, but I never stopped thinking about the Bigfoots. I was a security officer at an old castle. It was a big and creepy place, and I was always on the lookout for anything suspicious. One day, I was patrolling the grounds when I saw something out of the corner of my eye. I turned my head, and I saw a young girl standing in the middle of a clearing. I was surprised. I had never seen her before. I walked over to her and asked her what she was doing there. She told me that she was lost. She said that she had been playing in the woods when she got separated from her friends. I offered to help her find her way back to the castle. We walked through the woods for a while, but we couldn't find her friends. I was starting to get worried. It was getting dark, and I didn't want to leave her alone in the woods. I decided to take her back to the castle. We walked for a while longer, and finally we reached the edge of the woods. I could see the castle in the distance. I was relieved. We were almost there. We walked towards the castle, and as we got closer, I saw something strange. There was a light coming from one of the windows. I stopped and looked at the girl. "Do you know where that light is coming from?" She shook her head and said, "I don't know." I was starting to get a bad feeling. I walked towards the castle, and the girl followed me. We got to the castle, and I went to the window where the light was coming from. I looked inside, and I saw something that made my blood run cold. There was a group of people inside the castle. They were all dressed in black, and they were chanting. I knew that something was wrong. I turned to the girl and said, "We have to get out of here." We turned and ran away from the castle. We ran as fast as we could, and we didn't stop until we were out of the woods. We stopped and looked at each other. We were both scared. I didn't know what was going on, but I knew that we had to find out. I decided to go back to the castle. I told the girl to stay where she was, and I went back to the castle. I snuck inside, and I went to the room where I had seen the people chanting. The room was empty. I looked around, and I saw something that made my heart sink. There was a pentagram drawn on the floor. In the center of the pentagram was a book. I picked up the book and opened it. I started to read, and I learned the truth about the castle. The castle was built on an ancient site. It was a place of power, and it had been used for dark rituals for centuries. I closed the book and put it back down. I knew what I had to do. I had to stop them. I went back to the girl and told her what I had learned. She was scared, but she agreed to help me. We went back to the castle, and we snuck inside. We went to the room where I had seen the people chanting, and we waited. We didn't have to wait long. Soon the people came back. They were all dressed in black, and they were chanting again. We watched them for a while, and then we made our move. We ran into the room and confronted them. The people were surprised to see us. They tried to attack us, but we were too quick for them. We fought them off, and we eventually defeated them. We had stopped them, but we knew that it wasn't over. We knew that they would be back. We left the castle and went back to the girl. We told her that she was safe, and we took her home. We never saw the people again, but we knew that they were out there. We knew that we had to be prepared for them if they ever came back. We continued to live our lives, but we never forgot what happened that night. We knew that we had saved the girl, and we knew that we had stopped something evil. A few weeks later, I was called into my boss's office. He told me that the police had been called to the castle. They had found the group of people who had been chanting in the room. They had also found the book that I had found. The police asked me what I knew about the group of people. I told them everything that I had learned. They were interested in the book, and they asked me if I could take them to the castle. I agreed, and we went back to the castle. I showed them the room where I had seen the people chanting. The police looked around the room, and they seemed to be interested in the pentagram on the floor. They asked me if I knew what the pentagram was for. I told them that I didn't know, but I thought it might be used for dark rituals. The police took the book and the pentagram with them. They said that they would investigate further. I never heard back from the police, but I knew that they were still investigating. I also knew that the group of people was still out there. I knew that I had to be prepared for them if they ever came back. A few months later, I was working late one night when I heard a noise. I went to investigate, and I saw that the castle was on fire. I ran outside and called the fire department. They came and put out the fire, but the castle was badly damaged. I didn't know what had caused the fire, but I had a feeling that it was a group of people. I knew that they were trying to get to me. I moved away from the castle and started a new life. I never went back to the castle, and I never saw the group of people again. But I never forgot what happened that night. I knew that I had survived something evil, and I knew that I would never be the same. It was a cold, rainy night in November. I was on patrol when I got a call about a break-in at an old mansion on the outskirts of town. The caller said they had seen someone inside, but when I arrived, the house was empty. I searched the house from top to bottom, but I couldn't find anyone. I was about to leave when I heard a noise coming from the basement. I drew my gun and cautiously made my way down the stairs. The basement was dark and damp. I could barely see a thing. I took a few steps forward, and then I heard the noise again. It sounded like someone was crying. I followed the sound to a small room at the back of the basement. The door was cracked open, and I could see a figure huddled in the corner. "Hello? Is anyone there?" The figure didn't move. I took a step closer, and then I saw that it was a young girl. She was about 10 years old, and she was wearing a dirty, tattered dress. "It's okay. I'm here to help you." The girl looked up at me, and I saw that her eyes were filled with fear. "Please, you have to help me. They're coming." "Who's coming?" She said, "Them. The ones who took me." I didn't know what to say. I had never seen the girl before, and I had no idea who she was talking about. "I'm going to get you out of here," I said. "Don't worry." I took the girl's hand and led her out of the basement. I called for backup, and then I drove the girl to the police station. The girl told me her name was Sarah, and she said she had been kidnapped a week ago. She said her kidnappers had kept her locked in the basement of the abandoned house. We searched the house, but we didn't find any evidence of the kidnappers. We interviewed the neighbors, but no one had seen anything suspicious. Sarah was taken to a hospital for a medical examination. The doctor said she was in good health, but she was emotionally traumatized. She had nightmares about her kidnappers, and she was afraid to go to sleep. I stayed with Sarah at the hospital. I talked to her and tried to comfort her. I told her that she was safe now, and that I would never let anything happen to her. After a few days, Sarah started to feel better. She was still afraid, but she was starting to trust me. She told me more about her life before she was kidnapped. Sarah lived with her mother and father in a small apartment. Her father was a drunk, and he often beat her mother. Sarah's mother had tried to leave him several times, but he always found her and brought her back. One day, Sarah's father came home drunk and started to beat her mother. Sarah tried to stop him, but he hit her too. He then dragged her mother out of the apartment and into the car. Sarah ran after them, but she couldn't keep up. Sarah never saw her mother again. She was kidnapped by her father and taken to the abandoned house. I was determined to find Sarah's father. I interviewed everyone who knew him, but no one had seen him since the day Sarah was kidnapped. I was about to give up when I got a break in the case. I received a tip that Sarah's father was hiding out in a motel on the outskirts of town. I went to the motel and arrested Sarah's father. He was charged with kidnapping and assault. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Sarah was finally free. She was able to move in with her aunt and uncle, and she started to rebuild her life. I'm glad I was able to help Sarah. She's a brave and strong girl, and I'm proud of her. I'll never forget what happened in that abandoned house. It was a terrifying experience, but it also taught me a valuable lesson. I learned that there is still good in the world, and that there are people who are willing to help those in need. A few months after Sarah's father was arrested, I was called back to the abandoned house. This time, it was because of a report of a ghost. The caller said that they had seen a young girl in a white dress walking through the house. They said that the girl had long black hair and sad eyes. I didn't believe in ghosts, but I decided to investigate. I went to the house and searched it from top to bottom. I didn't find anything, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I left the house and went back to my car. As I was driving away, I saw a figure in the window of the second floor. It was a young girl, and she was looking right at me. I stopped the car and got out. I walked back to the house and looked up at the window. The girl was still there, and she was still looking at me. I waved, but she didn't wave back. She just stared at me with those sad eyes. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to help her, but I didn't know how. I stood there for a few more minutes, and then I turned and walked away. I never saw the girl again, but I've never forgotten her. I still don't know if she was a ghost or not, but I believe that she was real. I believe that she was a young girl who was lost and scared. I wish I could have helped her, but I'm glad that I was able to find her. I'll never forget her.